Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of NetApp On Air. As always, I'm your host, Nick Howell. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited for the show that we've got prepared for you today because it's going to be a good one. Today we're talking about FlexPod, all things FlexPod. We're going to talk about the history and where it came from. We're going to talk about the future and where it's going, and we're going to talk about the present and where things are at currently. First, a little bit of housekeeping. Guys, make sure you come and join the NetApp Discord. It is the place you want to be. You can go to netappdiscord.com, or you can, if you know how to get into Discord, discord.gg/NetApp. You can find us right there. That is where we have over 100 members of technical, executive, and support staff there ready to answer your question, as well as thousands of peer members and users and partners and all kinds of good people in there. So come join the NetApp community over in Discord. It is the place to be. It's where you can find updates on all the episodes here. Also, make sure you're subscribed to YouTube, Twitch, follow us on Twitch, all those good things. We're likely going to be streaming to more platforms in the future, but the place to be is Discord. You'll find all the links to everything there. Follow us on all the socials. You guys know all of that stuff by now. It's 2023. We know how to do social media at this point, right? Follow us all the places you would like to follow us on. Let's see. I wanted to bring this guest in today, because we did a little bit of a collaboration last year at Cisco Live. And over the last few months, I've been building my own version of one back here, kind of a homemade DIY pod. Home pod? No, we can't use that. Apple's use that. Some kind of pod back here that I've now got up and running. So why not come in and talk about FlexPod and how people leverage it, how people take advantage of it, and the things that make it really awesome. So without further ado, let's get started. Let's get into the show and bring on my guest today, Mr. Jeremy Hall. Jeremy, how you doing, sir?
Doing good, Nick. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic, man. I finally got all this stuff running. It's like we're getting ready to put some actual storage on the C250 that I have back here now. So we're going, we're good. We got ESX up and running. We've got switches in the rack. We've got VLANs getting ready to get configured. We're going. It's cooking. So I don't know, what would you guys refer to that as? A home pod, an HP pod? How do we define that?
Yeah, I would call it a Frankenpod.
A Frankenpod. Yeah, I like that.
There we go.
So Jeremy, what is it that you do here nowadays? How you and I met last year at Cisco Live, or we had met previously, but I mean, we did some collaboration stuff last year. The story of FlexPod is an interesting one, and we have a bit of a special guest that we'll bring in here as well in just a few minutes. But I wanted some time to wrap with you about your journey with FlexPod and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Well, so I was a little baby at one time. Oh, we'll fast forward a little bit. So, I got to NetApp via SolidFire. I was part of that whole ordeal, and we moved into our NetApp HCI. And I did a lot of the enablement, marketing, training, et cetera, for the HCI. And when FlexPod went through a little transition, went through new leadership over here at NetApp, they asked me to step in and actually lead the technical marketing team and to do enablement training around FlexPod as well. Shortly after that, I became the director of those two parts of FlexPod, and the other part, my peer, would be in the product management. And I directly work with Cisco as well, my peers over there, for building up new solutions. We do the designs, we work with them and collaborate, as well as we share enablement parts.
Yeah, fantastic. So if we go back to I think we got to bring on our special guest at this point, because I want to talk about how all this stuff started, because I joined well over 10 years ago when these things were first really coming to market and firing up. Mm-hmm. So, guys, I have brought you the director of FlexPod Solutions, but not just that. We have brought the product manager himself of all things FlexPod, the man, the myth, the legend that owns all of the business for FlexPod, Mr. Anand Lewis. Anand, thank you for joining us, man. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming to join us today.
Pleasure, Nick. Pleasure. Thanks for making time.
So, same question for you. Where does your journey with FlexPod begin?
Oh, I started at NetApp. This was more than 10 years ago when FlexPod was just getting started. And it was an idea we were brainstorming with the Cisco guys. How do we put a converged infrastructure built in, and we were just brainstorming, and that's how it got started. And so basically, when we went and talked to partners, they said, "Yeah, if you guys are going to put it together, we can make it ready and sell it to customers." That's how it started, and then it evolved from there. We added more technology, more application validation, etc., and then it took off from there, essentially.
There was a little bit there. We were seeing some partners start to do this already on their own. I'm digging deep in the memory banks here, trying to bring all of this stuff forward and tell the kind of historical stuff with it. But I remember a lot of the reasons that we were seeing it is because there was a demand in the market for customers wanted this. It was kind of the first semblance I remember of managed services. That's where a lot of this kind of started, was a pre-configured managed service, managed delivery of a product. And we were seeing partners deliver that through as VARs, right? We were seeing them take Cisco switches and NetApp storage arrays. And at the time, it was some different server, but UCS was just coming on the scene. Exactly. And we were seeing them kind of cobble these together in their own way and deliver them as a SKU. And I remember we were having the discussion about, well, why don't we just do that and let the partners just sell our version of it? And we had the other, I'll say their name, but not what they became. But we had Acadia coming on the scene, like they were doing it, and then they were eventually acquired, and we all know where they ended up in the 3-letter evil empire. But they... that whole like movement over the course of a very short term of maybe 2-3 years in the late 2000s, like I was a customer at the time, and I know we were looking at that as a solution through one of our reseller partners. So that was the birth to me. Like that was really the genesis of where it all started, and it really became down to 2 companies that were doing it. And it really is Cisco, NetApp, and really the partnerships that we've formed with the other kind of third leg of the FlexPod stool. Mostly started with VMware, if I remember.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it was really driven by customer demand. So and mostly partners, man. They wanted us to pre-test, validate it. They were putting it together, but they wanted some level of assurance that this is being tested at scale, that we could go in multiple dimensions, more compute, more storage. So depending on the app, and they wanted us to do all the due diligence, for right sizing, etc. And that's where we decided to invest and listen to the partners, right? Because 99% of both Cisco and NetApp sales goes through the partners. They dictate to us what they want. We build it for them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So, guys, if you have questions or anything related to FlexPod today, this is the place to ask them. This is the place to be, because we've got both Anand and Jeremy here. How would you two describe the difference between what you do? So, Anand, I'm pretty sure that you own kind of the development of the different things, and Jeremy, you take those and sort of ball them up into solutions as deliverable solutions. Am I guessing right?
Yeah, so Anand works on the roadmap, and he works with the PM counterparts at Cisco to decide what the future vision direction that we're taking FlexPod. So let's say we're going to an update of VMware software for healthcare or manufacturing, etc. They'll build out all the plans, and then when they get to a certain part that they need tech validation, tech writing, design guides, they engage my team, and Bobby Oman, which a lot of people know, he's the manager of my TME team. He reports under me. They build out that solution, deliver it back over to PM. On the other side, Wes Talbert is manager under me. He runs the enablement, and he looks at what Bobby Oman's team has built, works with Anand and them, and then we try to develop some kind of training or enablement, or at least materials that our internal salespeople and even partners can utilize for this newly developed concept, whatever we deliver.
Yeah, I love it. Anand, how about you? How do you reflect on what it is that you do as a product manager for such a massive business line?
So I think we need to go back to what Jeremy was saying. Essentially, we build the solution for partners, and we need to ensure that whatever we build out, from application infrastructure, technology updates, or specific application validation, right sizing, scaling, etc., reaches the partners. And that's where both the teams, Jeremy and the product manager, collaborate to make sure that we have sales enablement tools for partners, right? So we make sure it reaches the partner correctly. If that's successful, then we did our job.
Yep. So we had the bit of going down memory lane. We've got everybody updated on you guys. I want to check real quick and make sure we don't have any questions in the chat. No, just that it's just from Charles. It's a FlexPod party. It is. Let me bring your deck up here, now, guys. We're not going to PowerPoint you to death, but I definitely wanted this. I wanted to approach this today not as a super advanced assume you know everything about FlexPod. I want to kind of assume that you know nothing. If you're watching this, that I want to assume that this is your first exposure to maybe even NetApp, but that we also have this solution out there called FlexPod. So guys, if you would pretend that I'm a customer that I've never heard of FlexPod before, and give me the why. What is it, and why should I care? Why should I be interested in something like this?
Well, to me, the reality is FlexPod isn't even a product. FlexPod is a partnership and a delivered solution.
Yeah, it's an architecture, right?
Exactly.
It's a schematic.
And it's ever evolving. And that's where we really talk about FlexPod 101 is in 2010, we were developing, the latest and greatest of NetApp, combining it with Cisco's Nexus and UCS. Let NetApp and Cisco validate it, make sure we have the right firmwares, code levels, etc. For when we hand it off to a customer, it takes the guesswork out or the concern and confusion. We're delivering something that's ready to be just plug and play and move forward. Something that's been validated by both two of the top IT solution developers in the world right now. So when we develop this, it's a stamp of approval that nobody can match.
Yep.
Exactly. No, one more thing, and then we basically look at where the trends are. So, for example, what the customers are asking for. Are they interested in doing hybrid cloud? Where are the challenges? Where's the customer's journey at? And then we right size or we put the right solution together with Cisco and we deliver it into the market. Like, for example, there's a big push to see how do we straddle hybrid cloud.
Yeah.
Customers are worried about that. They're also worried about how do I modernize my applications? And what does it mean technically to do that? So basically in that journey, we deliver solutions that we want partners to turn it into practice, right? And FlexPod is essentially doing all the work up front instead of you doing the engineering work, Mr. Partner and customer. So we bake in a lot of things like design, implementation, deployment, all these stuff that customers have to do, partners have to do. We bake it in and we deliver that out of the solution.
Got it. Yeah, I literally just spent 3 months procuring different parts and servers and switches and then configurations and then all of this stuff. And it's still not really, it's 98% there, but it's still not 100% sort of production ready. But what the difference between building it yourself, DIY, and then rolling a rack off the truck, plugging it into your power and plugging it into your network and walking away, it's not that simple. I'm oversimplifying. But in essence, that's effectively what FlexPod is, what these converged solutions
correct.
are.
And partners and distributors put it together for you. So you say, hey, I want these type of applications to run on-prem, but I want to also have something touching the cloud, hybrid cloud, for example. They sit together with you, the customer, they right size it, more capacity, more compute, and then they build it for you, rack, stack, wire, cable, everything is built, and then the FlexPod is rolled into your data center. That's exactly the experience.
Yeah.
And part of that is also, deploying, bringing it up. All this is done through partners, and we provide all the material to, Ansible scripts, etc., for partners to do that quickly. So we want to build the practice out the partners to build the practice around us.
Yep. And it's there's a buying experience element to this as well. So instead of dealing with, I don't know, 5, 6 different manufacturers, vendors that I have of stuff in the rack, you're really dealing with 1, 2, maybe 3 most.
Yep.
So, I mean, obviously, if you're building a VMware FlexPod, you're going to have Cisco, UCS, and Nexus, and you're going to have NetApp. You're also going to have VMware and licensing there. But I think there's things that we don't talk about enough, in my opinion, and that's the buying experience of a FlexPod versus a traditional acquisition method. And then there's the support experience, what I used to jokingly refer to as the bat phone.
Yep.
You have the bat phone access to that. And then behind the scenes, Cisco, NetApp, and VMware will huddle to try to solve your problem, escalating to whichever side it needs to go. And you're basically, if it's not your partner directly, I should say.
That's correct.
So
correct.
I always loved the concept of having, it was one of the most attractive things was that I had a bat phone. I had one place to call if storage, servers, or compute software went wrong. Like I had a bat phone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is that still the case today?
Yes. So we call it the one throat to choke, right?
It's a little more violent than bat phone, but sure.
Yeah. So you call into Cisco primarily, or you can call your partner if your partner has that level of relationship with Cisco.
Yeah.
And they'll basically triage and do the handoffs where it needs to be, but they control the service request or the ticket. Very straight to the point. Cisco can handle the majority of the issues, but by chance, if it does go deep technically, Cisco would contact us, or Cisco would contact Red Hat or VM or the other software involved. But it's still in place, active and healthy right now. Anon and my team have actually just been redoing the documentation for that this last week.
Nice. So you mentioned Red Hat as well. I want to give some kudos to them, their OpenShift solutions, like all of that stuff. Who are some of the other big players and partners in this with us? We've mentioned VMware, we've mentioned Red Hat. Who else do you typically see? Where's the demand from customers for these kinds of solutions? What kind of workloads are they running on these FlexPods?
Well, definitely SAP and Oracle, Epic. It's the big ones out there that our customers are going for. And if you look through our verticals, manufacturing is almost 25% of the FlexPod customer base.
Wow.
From there, you have financials, then you have the federal government, and then healthcare. So you have more than 80% of the industry, or 80% of our work is in those industries. And we solve massive problems for big customers. I'm not saying we're not good for small customers. We're also seeing a large demand on the FlexPod Expresses. And that would be rack mount servers, 3 rack mount servers, a pair of Nexus switches, and an A250 or C250 or even a 2700 going into robos, SMB, mid-market. Yes, like what you got going on there. We're seeing a high demand for that. And we're really seeing it against what we talked about, those HCI environments where it's usually about $100K investment there. And we have FlexPods that are 30% lower price point. So It doesn't take 5 bars of gold to buy a FlexPod nowadays.
Yeah, I think looking back, that's been an interesting journey as someone who kind of started out as a TME and has now gotten to kind of, principal architect type of stuff. I've seen this journey of the HCI thing didn't work out as well as I thought it would in the beginning. I didn't have a lot of huge confidence in it in the beginning when we were seeing like the rise of the Nutanixes and the early the Simplivities and those guys, the early HCI adopters that were out there. Excuse me. I was kind of skeptical. I was raising an eyebrow. I'm like, is that going to be enough? Is that really going to be able to run these kind of workloads? I was always questioning it. And it's interesting that the way that we've done FlexPod from the beginning still holds water today. But in that time frame, we've seen sort of the rise and the just as precipitous drop off of HCI. But converged is still there. What do you guys make of that? If I can just pick your brains for a couple of minutes, what do you guys make of that last decade of converged versus hyper-converged?
Sure, I'll start and then I'll let Anon fill in. But everybody's always looking at the buzzwords, and HCI was a very good buzzword as a category of CI. The data centers have been moving towards simplicity for the last 10 years. We're always trying to put in less effort for more output. And HCI was very appealing for that. The reality, though, is most hyper-converged infrastructures, you're stealing from, Peter to pay Paul. You're taking resources, process memory, even IOP performance to run a software-defined storage on the physical hardware that they're trying to deliver application services from. And it made a point to where you had to have a lot of silos just to guarantee outcomes. So it was appealing. A lot of people ran to it. But again, FlexPod ONTAP specifically can do multiple workloads in a single environment.
Yeah.
Well, when you can consolidate those workloads with a very powerful operating system, put in Cisco Nexus and Cisco UCS Compute, we cover the whole gambit without having to make silos. And while you're taking 5 or 6 simple infrastructures, when you combine them all into one, you actually drive complexity. And that's what HCI did. In a small, super small customer, it fits in a lot of places. But also the cost of HCI, you're paying a high licensing fee for that software-defined storage or that specific hypervisor operating system you're putting in there. We're not driving up those costs. A FlexPod today delivers better available resources, better performance, a better customer experience by purchasing and support than any HCI solution out there.
Yeah. One of the reasons we were so high on SolidFire, I remember, was that it was the way to me it differentiated was it was a little more scalable. You saw a level of diminishing returns and fall off at a certain scale with most of the kind of traditional linear HCI solutions that were out there.
Yep.
SolidFire was the one that was able to defeat that, in my opinion.
Correct.
And I think it's why we were so interested in them.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I haven't been able to find any. I mean, VxRail's certainly still hanging around out there. We don't want to talk too much about competitive at this point, but I mean, there's still some lingering aspects of it. Most of the smaller ones have been acquired, and people have moved on from them. I see them on auction sites all the time. They're certainly moving on from those things, and maybe that's because of the cloud. Anand, to your point, maybe that's a hybrid cloud, motivation and reason. There's definitely a multitude of things going on in the industry right now that are sort of driving these decisions. But yeah, Anand, your thoughts on the last decade of converged versus hyper-converged?
So we have to give it to the hyper-converged guys. The simplicity of management was really attractive. I mean, even today, it's amazing. We have to give it to them. So we need to take lessons from there and bring it into the converged infrastructure, simplification of management, single point observability for across the stack. And we're working towards that solution. But I think to come back to Jeremy's point, the workloads have changed, have morphed significantly. So what I ask now from the IT infrastructure team is, I need to run multiple workloads on the same infra, and I need a leg into the cloud. So the challenges, so they're basically asking to do more things on the same infra. So power cooling is still an issue,
Sure.
running it on-prem, but they've been pretty much asked to do, I want you to be able to offer secure multi-tenancy, multiple workloads on the same, so virtualization, production-grade applications, etc. And all these service catalog services, like, for example, I want to offer a dev and test environment for a bunch of developers who are running it on the cloud. But also in parallel, I want you to run production-grade applications, like, for example, Oracle or enterprise-grade, mission-critical applications. And I want you to back up to a remote site. So all these constraints now so we're coming back essentially to the key value of converged infrastructure and mainly FlexPod. I think,
and a lot of it, the thing that's changed to me, guys, is that personally, I was a big client server guy. I was the MCSE from the 2000s. Right. I loved Active Directory. I loved all of that stuff. Give me my backing SAN and give me a server and I'm good to go. Right. Don't need run the backup somewhere else to tape. But now fast forward 15 years, I'm in a weird place where, yes, I've got all this gear back here, but you know what it's running? One big Docker VM. Because I am container first on everything. If I can find a container to run as an alternative to a thick app installation, I'll do that in a heartbeat.
Correct.
Because mobility, the ability for me to take that container configuration and a persistent volume and stick it anywhere I want to, really,
Exactly.
is very pervasive. And once that really sunk in, I was late to the container game, right? I'm an infrastructure dinosaur, right? I hang around this stuff. But I once I kind of got a taste for it, holy smokes, is that addictive. So yes, to your point, the workloads are absolutely changing, but the way applications are available and delivered now is also changing. Like, we didn't see this level of containerization and microservice development probably just in the last 5 or 6 years. Maybe with the rise of Borg and Kubernetes, that was the thing that really spurred it.
Yeah. Google taking the lead made a big difference.
Yeah.
And we're seeing, so even large enterprises who have, mastodont applications still running on mainframes, still running, monolithic labs, and they are taking initiatives to move to cloud native, Kubernetes-based applications. It's taking time because they need to do all the dependency mapping and data, which apps. It's taking them time, but they're definitely, all the new apps are going cloud native. There is no question about that.
Yeah.
Because it's faster, more efficient. It can scale horizontally up and down. And you can, exactly what you said, like, you can run it also wherever you want.
Yeah.
You built it once, run it wherever you want.
And for people like me, it's kind of a lifestyle difference. I used to live and die by my vSphere client.
Right.
Now I live in VS Code.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Doing Docker Compose.
Yep.
Or at a command line doing polls and re-upping. Like, there's this shift in the way that ops happen. It's the way you purchase it. It's the way you deliver it. It's the way that you do ops day to day.
Exactly.
Everything is sort of shifting, like, up and to the right in a way in the way of things are more efficient, more mobile than they ever have been. And it always fascinates me to see these, what traditionally have been very thick app installs, now be able to run as a 10 megabyte container. Like,
exactly.
It blows my mind that stuff like that's even possible. I wanted to shift gears a little bit, if you guys don't mind, because we had a good question come in. Jeremy, last year we did some announcements at Cisco Live in 22 around these intersite integrations, and I remember we talked about that in the YouTube video, the interview that you and I did. Mike brings up a good point. Has Cisco's licensing gotten any less complex? What's the state of the union around licensing when it comes to intersite? Are we able to affect any change on that when it comes to FlexPod specifically, or is that something that customers are just going to have to kind of grin and bear as we go through it?
So I'll actually let Anand take this because he works with Cisco specifically more on this. And hey, Mike, IT muscle. Mike used to work for me. Great guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
so the Cisco has simplified the licensing tiers. They brought it to 2, Essentials and Advantage. And they put all the automation, third-party support, etc., into the Advantage tier. So simpler. I don't know if it's necessarily cheaper, but when you are buying a UCS infrastructure, you need the Intersite Essentials, and then all the third-party monitoring, VMware automation, etc., has moved to Advantage. So they did try to simplify the deployment. The licensing tiers.
Gotcha. And it's not Cisco Live yet. We got about a couple months left, 6 weeks to go before we get there.
Exactly.
I'm anxious to see what a year of Intersite has brought to the table. I know we can't spoil anything, but I'm sure there's going to be some announcements around some fun stuff here in a couple of months. So we'll have to have you guys back to talk about the posts. We'll do a post show after Cisco Live, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. Maybe we'll bring Bobby and have him go over the architecture that they do at the show, because that was genuinely impressive last year. Just looking over his shoulder. I want to bring the slides back up here real quick, and let's kind of step through some of the talking points here. Anand, I think you're driving.
Yeah.
Just step through for those that might not be familiar with FlexPod, like how do we get to FlexPod from your viewpoint? And I'd love to wrap it up with kind of where you see it going from where it is today.
Hey, Jeremy, you want to take this?
Sure. So, I think it's important to look back at the beginning of FlexPod. The fundamentals haven't changed between 2010 and 2023. Oh. But the reality is the products have evolved. That's the beauty. We hear quite a bit that FlexPod's been around for a long time. It's kind of old. Well, no, FlexPod is extremely mature and it's evolved every single year. By even saying it's possibly old would be saying your iPhone is old. Because, I mean, iPhone 4 was out in 2010, right?
Yeah.
But now we're up to iPhone 14, something like that. And it's the exact same evolution of every product out there. Every year it gets better. And it's just
bigger, better, stronger, faster.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So as you see in the illustration here, every single evolution has gotten better. Even on the Cisco side, they came out with a new blade chassis last year. So they had the last one for about 10 years. This one's actually future ready for at least 10 years. It's multiple 100 gig backplane. So FlexPod as itself is not something that you can say, well, it's lost something. It's fallen behind. That's what my team does with Anon every single day. We're building these new architectures, these new references, these new ideas of how we can use it with the most up-to-date version of ONTAP, even with our C series that we're building in there now, with the most up-to-date versions of Cisco. So the evolution is ever changing. And I question, hey, what are we going to be doing in August that's even more cool than today?
Yeah.
So the name FlexPod is something it's for the ages, but it's going to continue on.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to continue to be an evolution in the scalability. I mean, as the iPhones have gotten bigger, the A8 chips, A10, whatever chip we're up to now, have just gotten more and more dense. We're seeing the exact same thing with the UCS blade chassis. We're seeing the exact same thing with our storage controllers, storage systems. So it's bigger processors, the fact that the 250, the A250 and C250 is a 2U footprint, and you can get about 300 terabytes usable out of those things of NVMe all flash. Like if you let that sink in for a second, and then you start applying efficiencies on top of that as well, with thin provisioning, with data reduction and things like that. It's insane what you can get in a 2U footprint. It probably took me a rack and a half of a pair of 3140s and a bunch of DS14 shelves to get what we can get today in 2U.
Oh,
exactly.
Before I started working at VMware in 2011, 2012, it was taking a cabinet and a half to put that much capacity in an old competitor storage array. So, I mean, the evolution just blows my mind on how much more dense we can make these with performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, to this story, NetApp IT has took down close to 80% of the physical footprint, and they're offering 3 times more storage or compute capacity. So essentially, you guys are right, man. We are able to do more with less on the compute side, but also on the networking side. On the storage side, and plus efficiency, etc. And this is also driven by, the energy efficiency and sustainability that are in all the RFPs now. We need to show that we are using reusable components. We need to be able to show that we are indeed working on carbon reduction, etc. Or else you don't get selected. It's simple. So technology update has been there for forever, and as you see, you'll continue to see the lesser footprint, less power and cooling needed to deploy this, and then extend it into hybrid cloud. So technology update will have to be there.
So
when FlexPod first started, we had 10 gig with the Nexus 5Ks.
Yes.
Now we've got 40 and 100 gig.
Yep.
And we can split off 100 gig into 425s to really connect to these. So what does that mean? It means less rack units, less port count. All of that stuff goes into what you were saying, Anand, around sustainability and being more environmentally friendly around that stuff. It's not just about reducing floor tile size and power and cooling. That's certainly one part of it. But when you can really get down to the granular measurement of things, due to the scale up of power of individual components, it's really gotten to a point where it's just genuinely impressive to see what we're packing into some of these systems in today's world.
Exactly.
We just completed the 100 gig end-to-end Cisco validated design a few weeks ago. So we can show from storage through network through compute 100 gig end-to-end for your most demanding environments. So plug an A900 into that and just go, right?
Wow.
Exactly.
All right, so moving on, where do we go past from here?
So this is the same. Basically, as you were saying, Nick, packing more in less space. Essentially, we have added 8 to 9 times more capacity on an existing FlexPod today. So that means in 2 RU on the storage side, we can. So what used to take 8 racks, we can pack it in 2 RU now. That's it, man.
What?
Yeah.
8 entire cabinets in 2U?
Yeah, that's essentially, and with 4-to-1 deduplication with the new C series, which has just joined the FlexPod family.
Yeah, that's insane.
And
I don't want us to run out of time, so let's go through these if we can real quick.
So this is a quick momentum. This is a 10-year-old partnership, and this is just to show how much we are jointly invested between Cisco and NetApp to continue the investment and continue the progression, adding more technologies, and most importantly, responding to what partners and customers are asking.
Yeah.
I mean, we will continue putting in what is needed to make it successful, right? For partner. So ultimately, our measurement is very simple. If partners are taking and using it and deploying it and building a practice around us, around FlexPod, that's what is the measurement of success. I mean, there are numbers, booking numbers, etc., for both companies, but how much they use, how much practice are they wrapping around? That's the measurement, the true measurement of success.
Yeah, I want to put a little asterisk on the note that you have at the bottom there around the cloud integration and come back to that one. So
yeah,
I'll save that one till the end. That'll be the fun one. But yeah, the only comment I have on that from a business standpoint is like, understand, guys, that FlexPod is one of the biggest parts of both NetApp and Cisco's business every year. It's that big. It ain't going anywhere. Like, it's only going to get bigger and better. And it's to me, it's a more efficient way to procure infrastructure. Of course, you're going to have your one-off components here and there, but from a main sort of structure and stack perspective, it's a no-brainer today. The discounts you get, the vendor integrations that you get, the pre-validated designs and support models, like, there's almost no better way to buy than this way today.
And partners really like working with us on this. It saves them time and effort.
Yeah.
If a partner can, from start to close of the business, shrink 50% of the time on not having to engineer it, partners happier working with us as well. So we're serving our partner community extremely well with our designs here. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Hey, so this is at a high level with FlexPod 101. What is a FlexPod? So if you have never heard about FlexPod, we've been yakking about this for 10 minutes now. What is it? It's got 3 main components. 2 provided by Cisco, the compute system that could be the rack mount servers, but also the blade chassis. And as you guys know, it's a fully programmable infrastructure, and that is led by UCS Manager. That's the management tool, or Intersight. For the new X series, it's Intersight managed. And then on the networking side, to connect all the components we use for IP, we use the Nexus switches, IP protocols. And then for fiber channel, we use MDS. Nexus also can be changed into what we call the ACI mode, application-centric infrastructure. It's again, it's a programmable infra. It's for large deployments. We have seen multiple customers, deploy, when you're talking about 250 nodes, etc. ACI is perfect because that provides you the zero trust programmability of the infra. So those are the 2 components. So compute and networking from Cisco, and then from storage, it's ONTAP. So we had FAS systems for a long time. We added AFF for high performance storage, and now the C series, the capacity storage, is joining also the family. So the fact that we have ONTAP at the bottom managing the entire storage infra allows us to basically very easily bring manageability into the tool,
Absolutely.
into the platform.
And things are so compact now. You can have both an AFF and a C series, kind of in the same rack now, right?
Exactly.
Because things have gotten so small. If you wanted something that was your tier 0, basically for super high performance, high demand, all that stuff, but then you had your, quote unquote secondary storage on capacity flash that was doing home drives or middle tier backups, whatever it might be. It's interesting to see that now we don't need a whole nother rack, whole nother UPS, whole nother set of cable management, whole nother set of PDUs. We can now literally sit those side by side. I've got a 2650, old 2650, and one of the new C250s sitting side by side. Guys, it's for you.
Exactly.
Right.
It's for you. It's amazing to me that we've gotten this far. That traditionally would have been, like you said earlier, anywhere from 4 to 8 racks.
Exactly. And you can mix and match workloads as well. Not only that, you can put dev and test, let's say for all the development part, you put them on the C series. And then when you want to take them into production, after you did the scale testing, etc., you move them into the AFF, and you get the super high performance. And then all the targeted backups or application hour backups could be done on the C series, right?
Yeah.
You can put them on-prem on the same side, or move it, 50 kilometers distant from for a DR perspective, or the DR could be in the cloud. So this is a base of and then just to quickly wrap up on the virtualization, we tested all 3, all the major ones. VMware is the biggest one, obviously, but we have also validated with Azure. Red Hat is picking up on the Linux side, but also on the management aspect as well. And we have a lot of bare metal workloads, obviously.
We were doing OpenStack at one time. Is that still being kept up with?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
OpenStack and OpenShift.
And OpenShift. OpenShift is picking up quite a bit in terms of enterprise customers. Red Hat is really pushing that management aspect.
I think that's one of the. It's going to be a kind of a gateway drug, if you will, to get things like ROSA, so OpenShift running in AWS. And now they've got OpenShift in all of the cloud providers, similar to how we have ONTAP for storage up there. And I think that's, you talked about hybrid cloud earlier on in the show, Anand, and I think having something like a FlexPod running OpenShift on-prem and having the ability to access all of the different OpenShift platforms in the different cloud providers, it's kind of the same. It's 2 kindred spirits there of the same mantra of what we've done with ONTAP trying to deliver cloud storage, and what they're doing with OpenShift trying to deliver sort of managed Kubernetes across on-prem and in the cloud transparently. And exactly. I think that's going to be the model going forward that I don't think people have quite accepted or want to accept yet. Is there is going to be a hybrid model long term.
Correct.
Not everything is all cloud and not everything is all on-prem. There's going to be, it's the right workload in the right place at the right time is really the way I always describe it.
So what's happening now is that, as you can see, VMware is trying to be the control point for on-prem and in the cloud with VMC. But we have Tanzu, Mission Control, exactly. But if you go to what Microsoft is doing, the Azure obviously is the target they want you to move, but they're realizing that customers are not moving, not necessarily. So Azure Stack now on-prem is taking preeminence. So customers are not fully comfortable moving entirely to the cloud for 2 reasons. One, they have to change the way they operate. You can't run. So on-prem, you can let the application just run, right? There's no one to supervise it. It's running on your own infrastructure. It's just working. But if you move the same workload into the cloud, now you need to pay attention to what is happening. If you leave it on, it will continue to get charged. So those are the changes we are seeing. So the control point, the management of on-prem and the cloud is becoming more critical now. So what you said is absolutely correct.
Yep.
Red Hat is going
And you mentioned
there.
Azure as well. There's Azure Stack for workload, like Azure Arc. There's where I've seen Azure really get adopted in big ways is with Azure DevOps.
Correct.
We've seen Azure Arc and development teams maybe developing on their laptops, but they'll run QA and unit testing in the cloud because resources. But the production might actually get brought back home and run on-prem, or vice versa. I've seen multiple different instances of it. Similar things in Google Cloud using GKE and Anthos, right? Exactly. And of course, AWS has Outposts. So where do you guys see FlexPod fitting in with the Anthos, Outpost, Azure Stack kind of trend that we've been seeing over the last few years?
We are the founder. So the way you need to think about our philosophy is that you need to anchor something. We need to anchor customers to some place, right? The best place is this technology where it's on-prem.
Yeah.
You want to go into the cloud. We have technology to allow you to move there. NetApp provides you with great hybrid cloud capability, not only just raw replication, raw snapshotting, snap mirroring, etc., but also application aware.
Yeah.
And we bring it into the Kubernetes world with Astra. So whatever management changes on top, that could be VMware, Red Hat, Azure. For us, it's another control point that we need to integrate with. So we will evolve with the technology. Right now, we have partnership with all three, VMware, Microsoft, Red Hat. But as it evolves and one takes dominance or whichever customer asks for, we'll adjust to it. So it's just a matter for us to design the solution, how to deploy it, how do we test it, and Jeremy's team is going to test it, validate it, and we bring it to partners.
Yep.
That's the way we want to constantly be. We need to change constantly, Nick, or else we get stale.
So one thing you said there that I think was important to drive home was you always need kind of a fallback plan. You always need a place to anchor. I like the way that you put that because if you get rid of all of your stuff, you are wholly dependent on someone else's stuff to serve what you need. And I think where hybrid cloud really comes into play is maybe we go back to traditional hub and spoke models and we start having that conversation. You need a hub. You need somewhere that if your credit card gets declined, your app doesn't go away. If a wire gets cut, like as they always do, if an availability zone goes down, like they do every day, something is always going to happen. But you can't be wholly dependent on those solutions if you need those kind of workloads. So I truly believe in the hybrid approach. I do think FlexPod and having some level of infrastructure on-prem is going to be a mainstay going forward, at least for traditional companies. There's certainly born in the cloud apps that
Correct.
don't necessarily, apps for your phone and things like that don't necessarily need on-prem infrastructure. Maybe some backup to a third party if nothing else. But yeah, I think for most enterprises, it's going to be the way forward.
Well, and if you look at hybrid cloud, I mean, that is our foundation. A lot of customers are still confused on how to do hybrid cloud correctly. When we start talking to our customers, they're having that issue of, hey, we get 5, 10, 20% into it, and now we've run into complexities. And that complexity is never at the compute layer because virtualization is pretty much a staple of skill set. Rarely even at the data, it's quite often at the networking layer. You have dependencies, you have latencies, you have authentications, etc. That's why I think FlexPod is actually ahead of everybody getting into the hybrid cloud because our design guides are basically born out of a company that does networking, right?
Yeah.
So our nomenclatures and how we develop these match what most of the hyperscalers are doing or the other hosting environments are how they name things. So when we develop one of our design guides for a hybrid cloud, there's no guesswork in there or translation. Ours specifically plug A to socket A and et cetera. So FlexPod will accelerate the adoption of hybrid cloud faster than a build-it-your-own solution. We've seen this from many of our customers that they have easier transitions or connections.
Nice. Well, guys, we got about 10 minutes left. I just wanted to sort of talk more. I like where we're going with the cloud conversation here. I want to stay in that side of things, and open it up for questions. Guys, if you have questions for either Jeremy or Anand, please put them in the chat, and we'll get those addressed here live on the air. Let's talk about the cloud. Let's talk about the future to close out the show. Without going into, we don't need a deep roadmap, deep dive. Some of that's we can't share, but I mean, Anand, from your perspective, we're approaching 15 years of FlexPod. Yep. Where do we go from here with it? Is it just now a race to the bottom of how small and how dense can we get the components inside, or beyond cloud, do we have kind of a bigger vision than that?
No, definitely race to the bottom in terms of smaller components, etc. is going to happen. That's a technology evolution and we will update it from components point of view, hardware viewpoint, and we need to give it to the customers. That's definitely there. But where I see the transition is basically the inflection points are around security. So, for example, we need to focus more on how do we provide a bundled security solution, zero trust architecture, stuff like that. And we have assets on both sides, by the way, NetApp and Cisco. It's bringing it together, and how do we provide a secure bundle, secure FlexPod, for example.
How would you describe that we do that today? And if you were being self-critical, what could we improve upon? Like, what are you proud of, and what could we do better?
There is definitely, we have them written down in the FlexPod CVDs, the Cisco validated designs, in our TRs. We have some point solutions, but it needs to be easily consumable from a partner viewpoint. So think about a partner. They don't have the subject matter expertise that both companies have. They don't have the depth that Jeremy's team or our equivalent at the Cisco side have. So we need to make it easy, consumable for them, for partners. So for example, what should be the runbook automation? How do you harden, for example, the FlexPod? How do you harden the compute side, etc.? So a bunch of small things to help them build a security practice around us. And then not only after you deploy it, how do you monitor it? So we have a bunch of assets in terms of cyber resiliency. It's becoming more and more critical now, and customers have been screaming at us about this, by the way. I have to secure and show cyber resiliency to IT, etc. So that's one thing. But I think
more of a hardened by default position.
Exactly, man.
Yeah,
exactly. And we need to see, and we have some ideas on how to do it, but you see this coming out shortly. The second big thing is definitely the story about app digitalization. What happens there, right? We need to start playing a more prominent role and accompany the customer and the partners in their journey. And we can come back to you and explain more what that means, but definitely targeted initiative on those inflection points that we need to address. Partner-wise, because we need to help the partner be the trusted advisor to customers. That's critical.
Jeremy, how about you? Any additional sort of feedback about that?
Well, I mean, the reality is my team doesn't invent anything. What we take is the greatness of ONTAP, and we pair it with what's new and what's phenomenal coming from Cisco, and we develop the design guides. So I'm not going to say we're coming out with anything new. I'm going to say that what we do is we take whatever our ONTAP brethren over on the other side of the engineering team does, and we actually build designs with what Cisco has, and maybe they can complement. Some of them are just highlighting our phenomenal outputs, and some of them are highlighting what Cisco does. But this is one of the cases where 1 + 1 actually equals 3 when you take ONTAP and Cisco and we deliver to a customer, because we're inserting that partner, right? And our solution. Yeah. So I'm not saying I can't give away our roadmap, but if you look at what ONTAP does, you can guarantee we're incorporating that into a FlexPod.
Sure enough. Fair enough. Last thoughts on anything you guys want people to know about. I've mentioned earlier we're about 6 weeks out from Cisco Live. Any teasers that they might be looking forward to for Cisco Live you want to drop?
Well, I would definitely say that, I'm going to be there, you're going to be there, and Nan will be there.
I live here.
My working team will be there. We have a lot of conversations going on. We have a park strip that we're going to have hosted. We have a large demo area. The Cisco Live event itself runs off of a FlexPod. So the whole building and everything that's going on in IT is a FlexPod. We sponsor that event. They come to us. They trust us enough to run their stuff. Come through and look at the NOC. Bobby Oman will be in that NOC.
Got to give a shout out to Jay Edge too.
Yes, Jennifer.
Fearless leader. Love it. Thanks for tuning in, Jennifer. Yeah, I can't wait to see the TAC, the build out.
Yep.
Of that whole thing, the NOC that gets built this year. That seems to get bigger and better every year.
It does.
I think Cisco Live was one of the shows that I missed the most when we were in lockdown for a couple of years, because that's always one of the, if it's not obvious, I'm a hardware guy. I love geeking out. I always joke around and tell people this is my classic car in the garage.
Yep.
This is my hobby. This is my passion. This is my my source of debt, if you will. But I go over and I'll look at the hardware and I'll just stare at it and go, wow, blinky lights. I just get entranced with it, because if you understand what's going on and that bare metal is being brought to life, it's an art form to do what guys like Bobby and those guys do, to be able to bring those large infrastructures to life in 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, well, we have one pre-built, we'll secret behind the software.
That's all fine and good, but getting it to the show, spinning it up, cabling it all up, getting it all to work, and getting
the demo
a couple of days, like genuinely impressive.
Actually, I think we have all of about 7 hours. Seriously, so my team will be there Sunday morning early, and we got to be done by Sunday afternoon. So yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being a part of the show and for being willing to come on today. I know we didn't go too deep on FlexPod stuff or any particular architecture today, but I really wanted this to be foundational and kind of a primer for future conversations. I hope you'll come back after Cisco Live. We'll definitely do some content during the show for the channel here as well, for any announcements that might come out and things like that. So we'll have all of that the week of Cisco Live, which is June 8th?
It's June 5th through 8th.
5th through the 8th, yeah. So, yeah, guys, we got about 6 weeks. Keep your calendars marked. We'll be back here on the show giving some announcements and things on the channel. Jeremy, Anand, I'll let you guys go. I got some final closing remarks, but thanks again for being part of the show today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick, for the opportunity.
All right, take care, guys. Well, there it is, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Shout out to all the crew from NetApp for being a part of the show today. And I'm really excited to look forward to Cisco Live. I weirdly enough, I didn't feel that way last year. And I think the reason was that was the first show I went back to post-COVID. And ironically, that's where I got COVID. So anyway, neither here nor there. I'm excited for Cisco Live because all of the things that I love are there. All of the vendors that I love, all of the architectures and the hardware, the UCS and the Nexus, and all of us, we're going to be there in force with NetApp. So big thanks again to Anand for joining us today. Big shout out to Jeremy for joining us today. And we will see you guys next week. We're going to be doing something a little fun and a little open source as a bit of a teaser. So make sure you join us in Discord, netappdiscord.com. Make sure you subscribe here at NetApp, youtube.com/NetApp. Follow us on all the socials. You guys know where to find us. Discord's the place to be. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Go upgrade your ONTAP too while you're at it.